Hi, it's Steve Malzberg, and on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show, we'll be joined by Robert Bud McFarlane, former National Security Advisor to President Ronald Reagan and co-founder of the U.S. Energy Security Council. He wrote a letter to Barack Obama on how to deal with Vladimir Putin. Then the panel will weigh in. It's the same guys. They're back again. Economist and professor at the University of Maryland, Peter Morisi, and Newsmax writer Bill Hoffman. Then Tim Graham, director of media analysis for the Media Research Center, will be here to talk about a slew of media-related issues. You're not going to want to miss that. Give me five and more this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show right here on Newsmax Television.
Get off the sidelines and be a part of the show. Call Steve toll-free at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Oh, and I can't wait to talk to Bud McFarlane. We'll be joined by him momentarily. And one of the things we could talk about with him is that the G8 has decided to kick Russia out, so they're now the G7. And that was decided today by President Obama and the leaders of the rest of the nations. It ends the 15-year association and membership that Russia had with the G8 group. So that's a further isolation for Russia. I got to tell you, Wolf Blitzer just went on CNN. I have all the monitors up, and I see out of the corner of my eye, Wolf Blitzer just went on CNN. It says, breaking news, new developments in the airliner. They're telling you that the Prime Minister announced what he announced this morning. You know, I mean, it's crazy stuff. It's just crazy stuff. Flight 370 ended in southern Indian Ocean. We've known this since 11 o'clock this morning or 10 o'clock this morning, Eastern time. It's now 7 hours later, and it's breaking news. That's what we were talking about in the last hour, if you were with us, with Dylan Byers of Politico. It's just insane. All right, I want you to hear what Joe Biden said over the weekend to the National Association of Community Health Centers, talking about Barack Obama. And, Barack Obama is going to meet with the Pope later this week. Maybe Biden's pushing for something. Maybe he could be the first living saint, Barack Obama. That's right. Watch this.
I know it's tedious. And to add to the difficulty, we didn't help you much at the front end here, man. I have my boss, my friend, Barack Obama, is an incredibly patient man. I suggested after going through the first couple weeks, I would nominate him for sainthood, that he kept his patience. But, it got off to a slow start. The president and I was as frustrated as anyone you ever knew.
Yeah, he was very frustrated, very frustrated. Look, he then went on to tell everybody how great it all is now, and of course it's not great now. Of course, the latest is that if you input information, an income, for instance, to see if you're entitled to a premium on healthcare.gov, they're using outdated poverty level information. The whole subsidy is based on what your income is and how it compares to the poverty level. Well, the poverty level has changed since last year, and guess what? They never updated the website. So you're giving people more erroneous information, and you think that's all? As I keep telling you, folks, use it at your own risk, because security experts have testified before Congress that it's hackable, it's a security breach waiting to happen, and the law states that unlike Target and private companies that have to tell you, hey, our system's been hacked and your personal information's now out there, if healthcare.gov, to the best of my knowledge, if healthcare.gov is hacked, they don't have to tell you anything. So keep all that in mind when you go into this wonderfully fixed, perfect, now working website, which is anything but perfect and foolproof and secure. Keep that in mind. All right, we're getting ready to welcome in Robert Bud McFarlane, former National Security Advisor to President Reagan and co-founder of the U.S. Energy Security Council. And he wrote a letter to Barack Obama, and he advised him on how to deal with Vladimir Putin. We'll talk to him about that. I want you to listen to Mitt Romney, though. Remember all the ridicule that Mitt Romney went through during the 2012 presidential campaign when during a debate he answered a question saying that Russia was our biggest geopolitical foe. Remember that? And Obama said, oh, the 80s called. They want their foreign policy back. Russia's not our enemy. Ha ha. Cold War's been over for 20 years. Ha 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 ha. Well, of course, Obama was wrong and Romney was right. Not only on this issue, but on many, but we'll stick to this issue for now. And Romney has, gone around. He's not afraid to say that he was right. He's not afraid to bring that up and look back and talk about how Obama reacted, how the media reacted. Oh, Mitt Romney thinks Russia's our number one enemy. Oh, not Iran, not Al-Qaeda. He never said number one enemy. He said number one geopolitical foe, and he specifically cited that, for instance, they always vote against us at the United Nations, and that's problematic. They're against us here. They're against us there. We're dealing with Syria. We're dealing with Iran. And he's absolutely right. He was absolutely right. And for the President of the United States, the sitting President of the United States, after 4 years in office, who thinks that he, has this great hey, you tell Vladimir I'll have more leeway once the election's over. Boy, he really got his comeuppance with Vladimir, did he not? But still, still the media sticks up for him, and the media says, well, George Bush didn't do anything when they invaded Georgia, and there's no comparison. There's no analogy to be made, really, at least not in my view, and in the view of others that we've talked to, between the invasion of Georgia and the invasion of Ukraine. And now, where will Putin stop? Where will Putin stop? That's a question that we discussed in the earlier interview with Doug Feith, who was former Assistant Undersecretary of Defense for George W. Bush. And he's of the opinion that NATO has to make it clear right now to Putin that if he dares to enter or engage or threaten a NATO country in the Baltics, that there will be repercussions, that there will be war. And I don't want war. And Doug Feith said, I don't want war. Nobody wants war. And hopefully Putin doesn't want war. But if you have NATO and a NATO country is attacked, then NATO has to defend that country. Otherwise, why would you have NATO? And that's what Feith is afraid of. Feith said that he feels that Putin may believe or may feel that he could break up NATO and not even having a shot fired. So let's welcome in right now Robert Bud McFarlane, as I mentioned, former National Security Advisor to Ronald Reagan and co-founder of the U.S. Energy Security Council. Mr. McFarlane, it's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you, sir.
Steve, it's good to be with you.
Thanks
for calling.
I love that very, very distinguishable voice. It sounds exactly the same as the last time I heard it. Let me ask you, sir, the letter that you wrote to the President of the United States on his dealings with Vladimir Putin over Ukraine, what prompted you specifically? Was there what made you actually say, I'm going to write this?
Well, having spent much of my life during the Cold War, I think people have forgotten the importance of that victory. And it was that by winning, we in the West really had advanced the ideas of Judeo-Christian principles, such things as the rule of law, individual freedom, democracy, so forth, and free enterprise further eastward, and made it possible for Poland, the countries of Central Europe and Hungary and so forth, to have a better shot at the future instead of being under the thumb of a totalitarian Soviet Union. Well, suddenly, with the invasion of a sovereign country, that is Russia, by invading Ukraine, that idea, that possibility, that hope was extinguished, or it looked like it was about to be. And so it was important that we underscore for the President that that tide that had been running in favor of the West, the United States and Western Europe, North America, in favor of this trend toward democracy and the rule of law, was being rolled back. And we needed to take a stand here and help Ukraine maintain its own sovereign independence and hold out that hope that what happens in Ukraine is not going to happen in Poland and Hungary and Bulgaria and Romania and so forth. So this is an important watershed event that I thought really needed to be underscored.
Well, and you know, one of the things you say in the first paragraph of the letter is imposing real costs against the government of Vladimir Putin, and also, and this is important, I think, very important, and to enhance the deterrence posture of NATO. We spoke to Doug Feith in an earlier hour, and one of the things he said, and I'd be interested to get your take on this, is that right now, the United States and NATO and whoever, you know, the generals of NATO, they have to be making it clear to Putin that if he does dare to do any of the things you just alluded to, sir, that there will be war. There will be consequences of war because they have to, NATO will defend these countries. Feith is afraid that Putin thinks he might be able to break up NATO without a shot being fired if he goes into one of these countries because they won't do anything.
Well, there's that very real risk, and the only way it's going to be avoided is with strong Western leadership, and that has to come from the United States. The European countries are consumed by their own problems, primarily economic problems, but they could rise and be inspired to come together again and to invoke Article 5 of the NATO alliance. It goes back all the way to 1949. But for them to do that, it's going to take very strong, principled leadership by the United States.
Do you think that this administration is capable of it and or willing to do so?
Well, I guess I have to say that looking at the history of red lines drawn in Syria that became meaningless, one has to be pessimistic. But there are instruments of leverage we can use. For example, we signed not too long ago an agreement with Russia called the Nuclear 1-2-3 Agreement that held out the hope that they could become the beneficiaries of a nuclear permanent disposal site in Russia so that the United States, France, Japan, and all the countries in the Far East that use peaceful nuclear power could dispose of their nuclear waste. As you know, in our own country, Harry Reid foreclosed that opportunity when he vetoed our disposal site in Nevada.
Right.
But it would have gained the Russians billions and billions of dollars. Well, we could suspend that agreement, and it would be a big hit for Russia. But we have to do carefully things that make clear we're not going to war, but we're not going to put up with aggression against sovereign countries.
Yeah.
Going to the point of what really was at the heart of Ukraine's vulnerability, it was energy and reliance upon Russian energy. Well, we in the West have to come up with a way to help Ukraine avoid that vulnerability by developing its own energy, and there is a huge amount of coal bed methane, which is natural gas, right in Ukraine that Russia has prevented Ukraine from developing. We could help them do that. We could also find alternative sources of gas other than Russia, to bring gas from Azerbaijan, from North Africa, from Israel, from Cyprus, from Greece. So
no, and you lay all these out beautifully in the letter to President Obama, which I assume you haven't gotten a response from yet, correct?
Well, no, not yet.
Well, I don't want to let you go, sir, because we're a little short on time, and I have a hard break coming up. I do want to ask you, how would Ronald Reagan have gotten along with Vladimir Putin? How would that relationship have gone? It's unfair to bring it to you at the end here in the last minute, but how